ॐ भूर्भुवः स्वः तत्सवितुर्वरेण्यं भर्गो देवस्य धीमहि धियो यो नः प्रचोदयात्। ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः। Namaste, my dear friends. भगवान श्री Ramna Maharishi recommended 6 books to Annamalai Swami. The books were Ribhu Gita, Ashtavakra Gita, Kaivalya Navanitam, Elam Andre, Yoga Vasishtha, and Surpa Saram. I have made video on Elam Andre. Today I will be making video on Sorupa Saram. Sorupa Saram means the essence of one's own true nature. So this is a very, very good book for those who are doing sadhana through self-inquiry to realize the self and aspire for liberation. So these books are very helpful for them. So Sorupa Saram, it was written by a Tamil sage Sorupananda. The Sorupa Saram, the basic meaning of this book is the essence of one's own true nature. Sorupa Saram, also known as Savrupa Saram, when it is spelled in the Sanskrit way, is a Tamil Advaitic work that was composed by Sorupa Nanda, a distinguished Tamil saint and guru who lived near Virai, a Tamil town probably around the end of the 16th century. He is associated historically with Tatvarayar, an eminent scholar who was also his sister's son. The following biographical information about them has been taken from a Tamil introduction to Sorupa Saram. Sorupananda and Tatvarayar were fluent in Sanskrit and Tamil, and both were learned in all the Shastras. However, the true realization dawned upon them that the profit to be gained from this limited knowledge, however praiseworthy, did not have the power to grant freedom from birth in the way that true knowledge does. They realized that it showed a lack of judgment on their part to devote their time any longer to the acquisition of this limited knowledge, which confirms advantages in this life only. By doing so, they would waste a human birth, something that is very hard to attain. Since they were both overcome by a desire to free themselves from worldly attachments, they devoted themselves to the task of seeking out a Sadguru who could bestow jnana. Having made this resolution, the two of them, before leaving their dwelling place, made an agreement with one another. Whichever of us is first to obtain the fortune of a Guru's darshan, he shall assume the position of Guru to the other. They then set out on a pilgrimage, Sorupananda to the south and Tatvarayar to the north. Upon the bank banks of the Kaveri in a holy place called Govattam. Swarupananda had a miraculous experience in which he attained a tranquility of mind that had thus far eluded him. This occurrence is due to the presence here of some great Mahatma, he decided. Upon consulting the learned people in that place, he discovered that a great being called Sri Shiva Prakasa Swami dwelt there in a patch of rushes immersed in perpetual samadhi. However, he ascertained that on a few occasions he had been known to come outside in the morning time. Going immediately to the holy presence of that Sadguru, he waited until Shiv Prakasa Swami emerged from his state of absorption and came outside. Making obeisance in the proper manner, he beseeched him to accept him as his devotee. When he had received the Guru's grace, Swarupananda waited for Tatvaryar return. Tatvaryar had travelled to the north, but he had not obtained the darshan of any Guru. When he lost all hopes of doing so, he gave up his search and returned to the south. On his way, he had the good fortune to meet Swarupananda, who by that time had realized the self. Tatvaryar then received the grace of his uncle, whilst Swarupananda and Tatvaryar were peacefully dwelling in this way as Guru and disciple. Swarupananda one day ordered that oil be brought for an oil bath. Since that day was Amavasya, new moon, the disciple was acutely aware of the Shastraic injunction that an oil bath was forbidden on the day of ancestors. But today is Amavasya, he said. On hearing this, Swarupananda said, what have all the prohibitions of the Shastra to do with sadhus? Although you have dwelt in my presence for many days, you remain unable to free yourself from the constraints of the Shastras. Is there really any advantage in your remaining here any longer? Thus, by means of this question and answer, he confirmed his suspicion that for Tatvaryar, birth was not yet at an end. Tatvaryar was shocked by these compassionate words from his Guru. Realizing that he had not yet succeeded in eliminating his vasanas, he was filled with remorse. He came to the following decision: rather than remaining here and besmirching the holy presence of my Guru, it would be better to drown this sinful block beneath the ocean. Then, realizing that it was forbidden to turn one's back on the Guru, he retired slowly, moving backwards. When Tatvaryar was departing in this way, meditating on his Guru, the devotees who were accompanying him took down the gems of truth that came out of his lips as his divine utterances and submitted them to Swarupanadar. These words were published in Jnana texts that are revered even today. When Swarupananda saw these works, he was astonished by their profundity. Realizing in his heart that such a sea of learning did not deserve to drown in the watery ocean, he commanded Tatvaryar to return to his presence. As soon as Tatvarya returned, Swarupananda said to him, "These difficult works, useful as they are to yourself, will not easily benefit the world as a whole. Compose, therefore, a simple work that everyone may understand and win salvation from." After giving this command, Swarupananda went off to eat in accordance with his Guru's wishes. Tatvayar, Tatvaryar composed and completed Kasivanna Bodham while his Guru was still eating. This work became part of the Mohvatai Bharani. Ramna Maharshi was particularly fond of the next development in the story. This is how narrated the story. The extract is from Day by Day with Bhagwan, 21st November 1945. Tatvaryar composed a Bharani, a kind of poetical composition in Tamil, in honor of his Guru Swarupananda and convened an assembly of learned Pandits to hear the work and assess its value. The Pandits raised the objection that a Bharani was only composed in honor of great heroes capable of killing 1,000 elephants, and that it was not in order to compose such a work in the honor of an ascetic. Thereupon the author said, "Let us all go to my Guru, and we shall have this matter settled there." They went to the Guru, and after all had taken their seats, the author told his Guru the purpose of their coming here. The Guru sat silent, and all the others also remained in Mauna. The whole day passed, night came, and some more days and nights, and yet all sat there silently, no thoughts at all occurring to any of them, and nobody thinking or asking why they had come there. After 3 or 4 days like this, the Guru moved his mind a bit, and thereupon the assembly regained their thought activity. They then declared, "Conquering 1,000 elephants is nothing beside this Guru's power to conquer the rutting elephants of all our egos put together. So certainly he deserved the Bharani in his honor." Though Tatvaryar was the author of many verses, most of which have disappeared, Swarupananda himself only wrote one poem. This was Swarupa Saram, a distillation of his Advaitic experience. This work was highly regarded by Ramana Maharishi. When he gave Annamalai Swami a list of 6 books to read, he included Swarupasram on a list that also included Kaivalyanavanitam, Ribhu Gita, Astavakra Gita, Elamondre, and Yoga Vasista. This recommendation puts the text in very distinguished company. This is the first ever English translation of Swarupasram. It has been translated by Dr. T.V. Venkata Subramanian and Robert Butler and edited by David Godman. The verses themselves are by Swarupananda, and the interpolated questions, answers, and comments are by a later unknown commentator. However, these additional remarks have always been associated with the work, and they are now regarded as being an integral part of it. Benedictory verse addressed to the self. Verse number 1. May the unique self, which appears as various objects in the same way that gold takes the shape of the mold into which it is cast, be our support and guide for composing this work. Swarupasaram, which proclaims that the nature of the world is only consciousness. Now starts the text. Verse number 2. Since the three kinds of differences do not exist, everything is only consciousness. The certainty of the existence of consciousness is stated in this way. Since there is nothing at all that is different from consciousness, the five elements, along with the five senses and the five organs of sense, all these are consciousness only. Whatever is in the beginning, in the middle, and in the end, all these are also consciousness. The indescribable illusion is also consciousness. The one who perceives everything and the act of perceiving are also consciousness. Third, verse number 3. Question. Is there a logical way of concluding that everything is consciousness alone? Answer. Yes, there is. All the world's diversity, which derives from the misperceptions of the mind and which appears to be real, is it not the witness consciousness alone? Hence, everything beginning with liberation and including purity and impurity, joy and misery, that which is and that which is not is only being. Fourth verse. Question. If all is being, do objects appear as one's own self, which is being consciousness bliss? Answer. Yes, they do. In whichever direction I look, there is absolute perfection. The real nature of all the holy waters is blissful consciousness. The real nature of all the verses praising the Lord is bliss. Apart from me, what other form can exist? Verse number 5. Question. Is the above statement merely verbal or is it experienced? Answer. It is experienced as well. My Guru instructed, Sir, the world appearance and its substratum, all these are you. There is no one who does not say I. Therefore, inquire thoroughly into the I. If this is known intently and thoroughly, one can say, I myself am pure consciousness, hence I am the primal entity. Verse number 6. Question. Which entity had this experience of the self and when did the experience arise? Answer. It is experienced by myself and the experience is ever present. I saw my real nature as pure consciousness. I see only myself and not the great multitude of the world. Simply because I had not looked at myself thoroughly, did I at any time cease to exist. Verse number 7. Question. If everything is only the self, why are the names many? Answer. The many names do not make the self multiple. Since everyone abides as I and declares himself to be I, right up to Ishvara, there is nothing other than me. The same person is addressed differently as son, brother, and father. But for that reason, will the body of the person become different? Verse number 8. Question. If so, the known and the knower will be different? Answer. No, they won't be different. It is myself who remained as the seer I. Those objects that were rejected as not I, these two are myself. It is like someone who goes to sleep at night as himself, manifests in dream as the form of the seer and world and then wakes up as himself. Verse number 9. Question. What is the inherent nature of the self that shone as everything? Answer. It is shining by itself as itself. The self that shines as the body, as the beloved soul, as all the actions, as ignorance, as the enjoyment of true knowledge, as the blissful reality, and as the one consciousness, that indeed is my own real nature. Verse number 10. Question. Is it possible to give a true name to the self that shines by itself? Answer. As it is a transcendental experience, it is not possible to give it a name. They will describe it as bliss, as transcendence, and as the witness of all that remains at the culmination of the four Vedas. What designation might I apply to my real nature, which all the treatises on jnana are unable to track down? Verse number 11. Question. If it is transcendent, then in no scope for inquiry. It is therefore necessary to indicate and signify it in some way. Answer. As it is everything and as it is nothing, it is beyond description. Is it I? Is it that? Am I that? Is that I? Is it shining jnana? It is the source of all sounds. Nadanta. Is it mona? Is the pure state Suddha? Is it a void? The self-shining natural state is all these and none of them. Verse number 12. Question. If it is said like this, none can realize the self, and so there can be no realization. Hence, a name should be given. Answer. The following are the names given by the Vedas. Enlight, Enlightenment is I, liberation is I, perfect bliss is I, being is I, consciousness is I, tranquility is I, purity is I, that which is unique and beyond the scope of the Vedas is I, pure consciousness, the source of all is I. This I is Atma, remember. Atma, or you can say Brahma, because there is no difference between Atma and Brahma. We have to keep these basic knowledge always to understand. Uh, Verse number 13. Question. Are all these descriptions experienced? Answer. They are experienced and also transcended. My son, I became and dwelt as the indescribable experience, transcendental joy, and everything else. I felt no need to declare. I have rid myself of the misery causing karma. I recovered myself and have been freed. Verse number 14. Question. What is the benefit arising from this experience? Answer. It is becoming the ruler of the kingdom of liberation. I obtained the supreme lordship that is never lost. I burned up the pair of opposites, happiness and misery. I gave up the life of the body forest, which tormented the mind. I entered the occupied the house of liberation. I entered and occupied the house of liberation. Verse number 15. Question. What play will this king witness on the stage? Answer. He will witness the dance of the three avasthas, waking, dreaming, and sleeping. In the waking state, I will witness the dance of the five organs of action and the five organs of sense. In dream, I will witness the dance of the mind. In thought free sleep, I will dance the object free wide dance. However, I will always remain as the exalted essence, the self. Verse number 16. Question. Where was this experience when you were regarding happiness and misery as I? Answer. Then, too, I was remaining as the self, I was nothing else. Who was the one who remained as the ego? I. If I see him, I will not allow him to take up the form of the body. Only the I, whose form is consciousness, is the real I. All other I's will get bound to form and go through birth and death. Verse number 17. Question. The self is immutable. Will it not get bound if it gets involved in activities? Answer. As the self remains a witness like the sun, it will not get bound. Even if I bear the burdens of the family and have them follow me like a shadow, or even if the cloud called Maya veils, I am without doubt the son of knowledge, self shining as pure light and remaining as the witness of the world. Verse number 18. Question. But the Jnani is not remaining motionless like the sun. Answer. He also remains most actionless. Whatever comes, whatever actions are performed, in whatever I may delight, I am only pure consciousness, remaining aloof and aware, without becoming any of them. Verse number 19. Question. All things move because the self makes them move. Hence, is there bondage for the self? Answer. Like the rope that makes the top spin, there is no bondage for it. In the same way that a top is made to spin by a rope, desires fructify in my presence. But, like the rope that is used to spin the top, I will not merge with them. I have rid myself of their connection. I became my own self. My bondage is indeed gone. Verse number 20. Question. But what is the way by which knowledge and ignorance was destroyed? Answer. In one's own experience of the self, neither attainment of knowledge nor removal of ignorance is seen. By, by what did ignorance get destroyed? Through what did knowledge gained through inquiry arise? How was the clarity known as the experience of true knowledge obtained? Other than myself, what do I know? Verse number 21. Question. If the dawn of knowledge and the removal of ignorance are not known, how can we call such a one a jnani? Answer. With ignorance removed from knowledge, like unreal from real, becoming both and becoming neither, this indeed is the nature of the jnani. When ultimately the real shone as I did the unreal which became I, go anywhere. I myself became the base of both the real and the unreal, but remained beyond the reach of the conflicting pair of real and unreal. Verse number 22. Question. Previously it was stated that I am the possessor of the body but not the body. Now it is said, I will remain different from the body and also be the body, which is true. Answer. The truth is remaining in, but aloof from the body, like the kernel in the mango seed that remains within the seed cell but aloof from it. Oh, I said, I am the body. I regarded wealth as mine. I felt I am the enjoyer. Are all these not false? Though I remained as everything, beginning with the body, the real I always remained aloof, without associating with anything, like the mango kernel in the seed of the sweet mango. Verse number 23. Question. Is remaining like this attached and detached only in the period of ignorance or also in the period of knowledge? Answer. It is in both. The periods of jnana and ajnana were seen and passed like the periods in which intellect had not developed and in which intellect had developed. Everything that was a superimposition during practice has now become false. Verse number 24. Question. Is there birth and death during the period of ignorance that exists prior to this experience? Answer. As these are illusory, they do not exist. Oh, where was I now born? Where was I born? What did I worship as God? Where did I seek refuge when I became the blissful essence, the reality experiencing unbroken bliss? Were not all these known to be false? Verse 25. Question. In what condition was the self before the dawning of the experience? Answer. When I am redeemed by realization of the truth, I am not confused any more. I lived as someone, I labored in vain for somebody, I underwent change, talking thousand names. Now enough of this. I have seen myself, that which is hard for me to discover. Oh, now I am free. Verse number 26. Question. What is obtained and experienced if one sees the self? Answer. The mind is dissolved in love and one becomes Satya Chitta Ananda. I made the deceitful mind melt and dissolve. I knew myself I really am. Since I am the substratum for everything, I became and dwelt as myself, the clear ambrosia of Satchit Ananda. Verse number 27. Question. Is the statement the world is only the self figuratively true and not literally true? Answer. Anything seen cannot exist apart from the eye. Similarly, the world does not exist apart from the self. Can there be anything seen that is apart from the eye? Can there be anything heard that is apart from the ear? Did any of the other four elements manifest independently of space? Though the world may appear like a flowing mirage river, when thoroughly examined, can the world exist apart from the self? Verse number 28. Question. Seer and seen appear different. Answer. This is just like seeing gold as various ornaments. They are not different. Here, other than myself, nothing else exists. I swear to this, a gold ornament does not exist separate from the gold. In the same way that one can change the shape of gold and give it different names, I described myself in various ways. Verse 29. Question. What is the nature of this experience? Answer. It is the transcendence that arises, dissolving thoughts, and in which everything shines as the self. It is beyond the reach of speech, and it is beyond the reach of the mind. It is the clear ambrosia with which one does not get satiated even when it overflows, like saliva that secretes on the tongue. It springs forth from within me like a dumb pot. It remained as I without being another. Verse number 30. Question. When everything exists as Shivam, why should one become Shivam? Answer. This is to enable the removal of all differences of one and two and to become perfect jnana. Do not question what is the bliss of Shiva, what is Shiva nature, what is Shiva's activity. It is only the fullness of consciousness that does not get divided, does not unite, and does not become different. Verse number 31. Question. What is to be rejected as asat, unreal, and what is to be accepted as sat, reality? Answer. Reject objects that are known as asat and accept consciousness as a sat. This is tranquility. All the tattvas, principles that one knows are foreign to oneself, while rejecting these objects as known, not self, realize the self through the consciousness that remains as the one who rejects objects. This is tranquility. Verse number 32. Question. If tranquility is the one true thing, what is the witness? Answer. Tranquility is itself everything, beginning from the witness right down to Swambhava, one's own experience. It is Shivam, the state of realization. Sorry. Swanubhava, one's own experience. It is Shivam, the state of realization. Tranquility is itself the witness self. The witness self is itself Brahma. Brahma is fullness. The pure fullness realized by inquiry is itself the ever present Swanubhava. This is the state of realization which is itself Shivam. Verse number 33. Question. Even if the mind subsides, Sayujam, union, is attained only when Maya is destroyed. Answer. The destruction of the mind is itself the destruction of Maya, and hence it is Sayujam. I have seen the way of the birth of the mind that leads to the birth of the world and the birth of the doer, the ego I. The non-subsidence of the mind is itself Maya. The firmness of those who destroy this Maya is Sayujam. 34. Verse number 34. Question. If this is Sayujam, where will the past karmas go? Answer. In this experience, they will disappear without leaving a trace. I rid myself of the fear that arises from the misery of imagining. I underwent an endless succession of births and deaths. All of the ancient world has become the vast empty expanse that is my own self, since everything other than myself is false. Verse number 35. Question. When there is such an experience, why perform karma? Answer. When this experience has not arisen, actions are performed. Until I became the endless, blissful experience through the superior wisdom that regards all worship and similar things as the not self. I worshipped the gods at the prescribed times and observed all the vows. Verse number 36. Question. Who will attain this experience? Answer. Only those who are pure and who have the prescribed qualifications will attain it. The experience of reality, eternally abiding and shining as oneness, as blemishlessness, as fullness, and as truth, is attained only by those who are more qualified, pure, who have a steady mind, and who are undergoing their final birth. Verse number 37. Question. What are the marks of a pure one? Answer. They are as follows. The answer is the content of verse 37 to 42. They will not utter harsh words. They will not hate anyone. They will be of cheerful countenance. Whatever things they relish, they will not use them for themselves, but will offer them to the great ones. They will not associate with evil persons. They will not curse anyone. Their eyes will not blaze with anger. These are the ones who will rid themselves of birth. Verse 38. They will not value as real those signs that are destructible. They will never speak out saying this is good and this is bad. They will not grieve over events of the past. They will not condemn anything. They are the exalted ones. 39. They will not speak contemptuously of the ordinance of the Vedas. They will not remain without chanting and melting with devotion as long as they live. They will not forget death. They will not get attached to this world through weakness of mind. They are the ones who will not be born again. They will not experience at all sudden movements of the mind. They will only desire to know the path of salvation. Their minds will not get immersed in attachments, saying greedily, this is my wealth, my house, my wife, and my children. Such are the mature ones. 41. Will they care for things that are valued by others as desirable and not desirable? When one really looks, those who become tranquil and eternal, who experience truth and abide in the final state are few in number. 42. Those who do not see anything other than their self here and in the hereafter, who are beyond both and without any division, will they degrade themselves by not regarding as trivial this phantom like world appearance that is an illusory play of sankalpas? Verse number 43. Question. Shastra Vasanas, a latent desire for scriptural knowledge or the Vasanas of knowledge and ignorance. Will these two not arise in those Gyanis even though forgetfulness? Answer. As these are Vasanas, they will not arise. During every superimposing avastha, the liberated one clearly knows that the illusion of sound and the illusion of real and unreal are only the illusion of the mind because he knows that the superimposed avastha that appears and disappears is false. Verse number 44. Question. If this is so, for such ones, what constitutes the worship of God? Answer. Worship is only seeing the self. The great Tapasvin devotedly worship with the flower of tranquil space and with the mantra of aloneness, the deity who abides as the expanse of consciousness in the temple of the body, who can equal those who live forever revering such jnanis.